sky, watching stars align. Days of making sweet honey, Melissa lemon balm. Nights as warm as your breath on my chest, so calm. Now baby, let the summer breeze
Hey guys, I don't know how we got so far behind the curve today, but I appreciate you being patient here. Let me move my meter around and get things started. This is a look at what things look like outside here. The tropical moisture flowing northward as usual. South winds, no precip here at all. The view outside looks pretty clear, and the view inside, there's the webcam, and yeah, sorry about that delay trying to get things started. Usually it's about an hour of work trying to get things all done, and there's like probably about 60 or 70 things I have to do to prep for the webcast. So let's head into the charts and see what's going on across the country. Pretty quiet in Texas here, and you can see the onshore flow definitely coming up from the north. 15-knot winds there just off the Cap Rock. And we've got a little MCS moving through Mississippi. And you can kind of see the southwest winds here ahead of the MCS. And if we go up to 850 millibars, that's kind of the feed of the moisture, and you can see that they're being fed from the west. Looks like about 30 knots here on this rapid refresh model forecast. So it looks like a little bit of wind feeding these cells, and that's going to help propagate these towards the west. And if you remember, we were talking about Corfiti vectors. We can use SPC's chart here. Go to the 850, 300 millibar wind. So it gives you kind of your cloud steering flow. So if you have one cell out by itself doing nothing at all, it's going to tend to drift that way right there. So that's the vector for those clouds. And then we have the 30-knot flow coming this way. Remember, we were seeing that? So we have a vector that's drawn opposite into the low-level flow like that. So we take the vector difference, and we get a bit of propagation towards the east. Okay, let's see here. Let me go to the chat and see what's going on. And we'll take a look at the northern plains too. We do have some severe weather going on up there in Nebraska and Iowa. Sue M is here, and Mick and Fun with Tech. EAS fan is here. Greg Shaw is prepping for more severe weather over southern Wisconsin tonight, just upgraded to a slight risk. It is Friday, and let's see here. Ron Chalfant, EAS fan 51, Megan John, Alexi Pink doing homework, Lloyd McCarter watching eastern Nebraska and western Iowa, Thomas Copeland seeing lots of slow-moving showers and thunderstorms in Virginia lately. His garden says thanks. Burl H has joined us and waiting to see what develops as storms move east through his state. And Sue M also watching a storm. We got quite a bit of activity out there. Greg Schultz looking for 1.75 to 2 inch hail in central Wisconsin. Actually, those have been reports of that. 123 degrees in Arizona from Ronald Martinez. And hello to Michael Burrell and Kevin McKinney, Eddie W., Thomas Copeland. 100 degrees in California from Ronald Martinez, 104 in San Bernardino. Had a weak tornado, of course, according to Kevin McKinney, in Whitfield County, Georgia yesterday. Not all tornadoes come from supercells. Yeah, that's true. Carl Berghoff, Sue M. And just kind of scrolling through the chat very quickly. Greg Shaw loves the snack bar theme, just needs the tiki bar. Stream is great tonight. Audio is good. Double mic feed. Let me know if you're still getting it's what we call slapback, when the mic goes out and comes back in and it echoes. I don't see anything in here that suggests that would be going on, but if it is, let me know. Lloyd McCarter, could you fix mic feed? Greg Shaw says Pivotal Weather is one website Tim uses. 9 tornadoes on Wednesday, and one were from supercells. Okay, let me take a look at my audio board and look for problems here. And I'm going to restart the audio board here just a second. Okay, guys, let me know how that sounds. If there's still problems, I'm going to plug in the headphones and see what's going on here. I don't exactly want to be doing tech support here in the middle of a webcast, but I do need to fix the audio for you guys. Tree Nelson says audio sounding really good. Eddie W says audio sounding good. Lexi, I turned one slider down about 30 seconds ago. Maybe that helped a bit, so let me know here. Greg Shaw, Carl says audio sounds fine to me. Okay. I guess we are set here. So let's take a look at the storm inflow into the Omaha convection here. So we will go to the 850 millibar analysis. And we see, looks like some 25 knot flow coming from the south there. So there's going to be a tendency for cell propagation this way. So we take the upper level 850, 300 millibar winds. Looks like we got westerly at 30, so the vector is going to go that way. Cell propagation going to be towards the south. So we're going to be seeing the cells moving this way towards the southeast. So that would be your Corfidi vector right there. Cells are going to be tracking generally in this direction and propagating back this way. And this is not a hard and fast rule. It can be strongly modulated by the cold pool left behind, and we can see a little bit of that back there. Especially with your strong meso highs, you can have very prolific propagation backwards down the boundary, and you can end up with very strong right movers for the MCS as a whole there. Okay, let's see, checking on the chat here, seeing how our audio is good. Looks like Lloyd is hearing a bit of echoing. Taking a guess here, looking, Darnell Johnson taking a guess. It's clear in Princeton, West Virginia, in the southern part of the state there. Funwood Tech says the charts using are from the SPC analysis page. NAM looked really good for Beloit, Wisconsin. Severe weather for Missouri, basically the Midwest, and the south central U.S. And let's see. Okay. Carl Berghoff says, do you live near Milwaukee? Funwood Tech, drop out and restart. Okay. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the headphones and plug in here just to make sure we don't have any issues. So So give me just a second here. We'll get this going and see if we have any problems. We have one user reporting echo, and somebody else said that there were issues earlier about 2 minutes ago. By the way, I wanted to thank one of our new Patreon donors. Let me find my notes here. Let's see here. Yeah. Lloyd McCarter, appreciate the donation there. And, of course, yesterday's donations, John Booma and Jason Fenley throwing in a few bucks there for the webcast. And let's see, I'm going to plug in here and bring up the audio in my headset and see how we're doing. I don't like headphones at all, so I'm not one of those webcasters that use those. But let me see. Okay. Audio device not coming up yet, so let me just push on and we will continue with the webcast. And let me bring down some of the levels here. Okay. We'll come back to that in a little bit and see how things are. Okay, for the weather charts, we have a moderate risk out there for the Omaha area ahead of that MCS, and a slight risk ahead of the MCSs there in Mississippi. 500 millibar flow, we've seen that little trough move northeast into Manitoba, and that's left us with kind of a zonal flow across the western U.S. And we can see the redevelopment of abnormally high heights in California, which means very hot weather for California, Nevada, and Arizona. Also, since we have low heights up in British Columbia and Alberta, we've got a bit of a height gradient in between. So very strong jet stream winds across Oregon, Idaho. That can definitely supplement any storms or any baroclinic waves getting started in that area. And let's see here. Let's go to 250 millibars and check things out. There's the flow. Up at 34,000 feet, we've got the jet coming in from about Portland, Seattle, up to Montana, and into South Dakota through Wisconsin. And do we have any sign of the subtropical jet? Yep, there it is to the south, 50 knots at Midland and Del Rio. That's a little bit weaker than what we had yesterday. And look at that. Looks like we get the addition of a ACARS report. See, United Airlines Flight 1159. This is why I like going to these particular kinds of plots, because all of the available data is displayed. So we've got this one, and we've got one other track from a Japanese Airlines flight that flew out from, looks like from about Vancouver maybe to Honolulu. So very good data coming in from that airplane. Happened to be flying right there at 300 millibars. So very valuable, and we don't get that on a lot of the university plots. That's the reason I really don't go to those sites very much. Such as admittedly UCAR, they don't have the plots like I was showing you. So no data there. But these are very good depictions of the upper air patterns. You can see the polar front jet coming in from the Pacific Northwest and across the Great Lakes. And there's the subtropical jet. Now it is showing up at 200 millibars along the southern states from San Diego to El Paso and down to Del Rio and Laredo. In between, very light flow. So any storms in Amarillo or the Raton Mesa, Albuquerque, those are going to be on the weak side. 500 millibar flow showing a similar picture. There's the polar front jet to the north. We see a very weak reflection of the subtropical jet across southern Texas. 700 millibars, this is showing the capping. So we're looking at temperatures here. If we draw the 10-degree line, we're going to get something like this. And I prefer drawing these myself instead of having the computer do it. The computer can sometimes do a good job, especially since I think this is coming from the rapid refresh model. It's probably got the isotherm fields exactly where they need to be. But as long as I trace over it, I'm kind of impressing in my mind the picture of what that strong capping looks like. So there's 12, and then we've got 14 over Oklahoma City. Then our 16 is going to be way out over West Texas to Albuquerque and down to about Deming. And looks like the hottest temperatures right around Midland down to Carlsbad. So you can imagine the effect of advection. Any southwest flow coming from this area, that's going to bring the capping out over the Great Plains. And the general flow is from the west, so it looks like mostly the capping is going to be heading towards East Texas and Arkansas and Louisiana, and less of that capping for the Central Plains here. So those are features we're going to be looking at on the soundings. 850 millibar flow showing the dew point depressions kind of on the high side, which means very limited moisture depth. I see maybe a 15-degree dew point there, 59 Fahrenheit at Shreveport, but elsewhere looks like a lot of 40s and 50s dew points in the southern plains right there, and very veered flow. So if we have a low-level jet, it's looking like that right there, from Amarillo down to Springfield, very veered. And the 850 millibar flow, this is tapping more into the tropical air. And I see a little bit of a low-level jet, maybe running something like this. Moisture quantities, I see dew points maybe around the mid to upper 60s through Texas up to Oklahoma. So we got about 66 there at Del Rio. So some decent moisture, about 2,500 feet off the ground, working its way northward. And we can also look for fronts. Sometimes outflow boundaries show up at this level. Do we see any? I don't think so. I think maybe our warm front is way up in the Great Lakes area. And for a cold front, I think we have to go all the way to the Dakotas. Maybe something like that. So that's the picture right there. Very large tropical sector, but you can see there's a lot of westerly winds and very limited moisture. So you can kind of see we're building up a picture of what we're going to see on the skew-ts. This is the potential temperature analysis. So this is all the temperatures at all the stations reduced adiabatically, dry adiabatically to sea level. And this is showing the very intense heating in New Mexico. all the way up into Utah. Don't see any strong gradients through this area, so probably no fronts, but up north, yeah, it looks like we may have some sort of gradient there. Southern Wyoming into northern Nevada. So we'll look for that on the surface charts. And looks like also a gradient in Texas. That's definitely an air mass change right there, and I think this is a transition from the old continental tropical air, if you want to go by the old designations, continental tropical air with maritime tropical over Texas and Arkansas. That's the moisture coming northward off the Gulf. And looks like some evidence of that other front coming in from the north. That would be our continental polar air mass. So somewhat drier, cooler air up in that area. And then up in the northeast also, we've got a thermal gradient. We stay on the warm side of that, and I think maybe we're looking at something like this. So maybe going by the old designations, we would refer to this as maritime polar air. So it's not necessarily coming from the poles, but it's coming from a cold source, and that could be the cold currents over Newfoundland, maybe recirculating southward. Maybe cool radiational cooling over Quebec. So eventually some of that will filter down into the northeast U.S. And we get kind of a backdoor front in that area. So, wow, we've got a pretty good picture of the air masses across the U.S. So you can see we're really getting things in shape for the other analyses. And then going down to the satellite, there's our Nebraska storm coming together. Let me see if I can run that from the beginning, because that's pretty fascinating there. There's the towers right there over northern Nebraska near Yankton. We can see that coming together. Very tall CBs. And a little bit of lethargic growth right there, but then we see an anvil kind of shearing out towards the southeast. That's the 2 and 300 millibar flow pushing that southeast. And we can see a new cell propagation down the line. This is the flanking line. Here's a bit of overshoot. So if you're chasing, this is about where you want to be, right under there. Looks like some sort of boundary through this area. Remember yesterday we were talking about the MCSs yesterday. They were going to be leaving behind a boundary somewhere in this area, and sure enough, this is what we ended up with today. And the models don't handle those boundaries very well, so it definitely pays overnight to keep tabs on those boundaries and try to find out where they are moving and where they end up during the morning hours. So pretty good multicellular storm. We can see the first storm maturing right there, and then there's the new one down the line, propagating right down the flanking line right there. So this is the place to be when you're chasing, and we'll continue that here. One thing you can see, though, very limited moisture out ahead of this storm. We have a lack of stratus and stratocumulus. And on a big tornado day, that's pretty important. We need pretty good low-level moisture. And also when you have those clouds, that's an indicator of high relative humidity in the lower layers. And high relative humidity means low LCLs. And if you go back to your prerequisites for tornado formation, or if you look at the supercell parameter, that low LCL is very important for tornadogenesis. So the lack of low cloud would be a concern here. And you can see a pretty strong anvil right there spreading out, covering almost an entire state right there, almost covering Iowa there. And we get to the end and we see one storm out ahead of the line going up, and certainly some severe weather potential there. Looks like just west of Lincoln, maybe around Grand Island. Maybe we should take a look at the radar. Wow, look at those gravity waves on the top of the anvil. Very impressive there. This anvil top is at about maybe 38 to maybe 43,000 feet or so up near the tropopause. In the tops themselves, those are probably poking up to about 45 to 50,000 feet. So it is possible if you're flying, you can go over these storms, but those radars are important. Fortunately, they do kind of point down, so pilots that are flying through these, they're able to sweep down and avoid these cells that are growing for the most part. I will tell you, though, there is one MCS that I did get to fly through back in 1982. It was a Flying Tigers 747. We were coming in from LA to St. Louis on this thing. We had an MCS. This was the same time of the year, like right now. It was over Kansas, and the pilot decided to fly pretty much right through the MCS, cut right through that. Very interesting ride. We got bounced around a whole lot, but we made it intact there. And later, at the day's inn that we stayed at that night, the MCS caught up with us, and we had thunderstorms raging from about 2 to 3 a.m. And I've actually got satellite imagery of that. Maybe I'll show that to you one of these days. Okay. There's our moisture field right there. Looks like a lot of mid and upper level moisture distributed throughout the U.S. And indeed, we've had a lot of low pressure systems moving through Texas, Arkansas, helping us spread some of the moisture northward. And also the MCS helping out with that also. You can see the MCS pretty clearly. Remember where we drew that on the 200 millibar analysis? And on the poleward side, look at that dry air. A little bit of transverse circulation across that. So water vapor imagery can really help you out there. And we can look at the pre-storm environment on the Terra satellite 450 miles out in space. This is western Nebraska, and you can see these storms about to come together. You can definitely see some sort of boundary there along the Platte River. Maybe another one up through here. So early during the day you're looking for boundaries, and then later there's where we have them go up right there. Pretty good storm there. So boundaries out west, let's check that, or out east. Let's look at that. Very hard to see. We can see a little bit of towering cumulus along this line. So we would be looking at surface data and radar, and then of course later we did get our storms. I think they were in this area, I believe. Yeah, here's some going up right there. So yeah, let me go back and just check where we had that development. Okay, yeah, we were focusing on this area right there. So this towering cumulus looks like it propagated a little bit to the west, and we saw our development later during the afternoon in this area right there. So that's the root of today's moderate risk. Those storms got going, and we've ended up with quite a bit of severe weather. Here's the thickness chart, and it's pretty easy to pick out the fronts. Looks like maybe a little bit of a warm front through Iowa. Cold front arcing back through Nebraska into the Great Basin area. And we can see our maritime polar source region up in the Gulf of Alaska, way up here at the top of the screen. So that's helping to generate some very dense air and push that southward, helping to reinforce the boundary even in Idaho and Oregon. And I wonder if we can see that in digital atmosphere. I'll bring up the plots for that. Digital atmosphere. Load in some data. And let's plot that real quick. So these are going to be current plots. So we'll scroll that over. Let me get my window fixed here. Looks like I'm not over far enough, but let me fix that real quick. One thing I need to develop here is scrolling. And I've actually got that in a pre-release right now where you can just kind of grab the map and pan around. Definitely needed there. So let me zoom this out one more time real quick and we'll look at the weather in the northwest region. So we know there's an east-west front through the Great Basin area through Nevada. Let's see if that's apparent. Let's see what it looks like. Well, we've got 93 at Tonopah, and I worked there for 3 years, and 93 this time of year. That's very warm. 105 there in Las Vegas right now. We can move to the north, do our imaginary car drive. 88 once we get up to I-70. I think it's I-70. And then we go a little bit further up to Owyhee and then southeast Oregon. 70 with a north wind. 68 up there near Boise. A little bit of rain right here, so a big change. And I think that would put her front right through here. In California, looks like around Red Bluff, 96. Then we get up into the higher terrain. That kind of makes it very difficult to kind of see what's going on. But I do see strong northerly winds right here, 70. I guess that's Klamath Falls, 70, a little further north. So that would put her front something like that. And wow, look at those temperatures in California right there. 91 degrees around, I guess, Napa Valley there. 98 around Stockton. 95 through the San Joaquin Valley. 104 in the deserts. And then 110 at Yuma. 112 there at Needles. Boy, that is some definitely hot air right there, and 107 at Phoenix. I don't know where that 123 is that was mentioned. Maybe that was somewhere at one of the stations out here. But very hot weather, and I'm sure Death Valley is probably way, way up there. So let's head east and just take a quick look, see if we can see the dry line. Well, we've got 60s flowing northward through Texas. And 29 at the station right there. So that's going to put the dry line somewhere through here. And looks like we got a little bit of a front moving southward too. You see that right there. Even behind the front, little light north wind with 103 degrees there. 4 degree dew point at Tucumcari. A lot of dry air in New Mexico, and -1 dew point in Albuquerque. And if from what I've seen, and I've run the numbers on this, the absolute lowest dew point I've ever seen in the warm season in this dry line area was -8. And I can't remember the station. I think it may have been like Clovis or something like that. So this is extremely dry air. -3 right there. Wow. -4 at Deming. That is pretty amazing there. Okay, then as we go north, we pick up the rest of the dry line and probably a few outflow boundaries kind of mixed in there too. So that's what's going on front to the north. We know about that already, and that's our picture. So we've done a pretty thorough analysis of weather across the U.S. Soundings at Fort Worth for this morning. You can see the dry air. Bit of capping at 800 millibars. So if we try to get a storm going with 95-degree air, mix the lowest 150 millibars, we get a parcel like this. Yeah, we've got some cape up there, but look at all that convective inhibition right in there. So no chance of thunderstorms here in Texas. That warm air, 800 millibars, that's a big problem there. Midland, this is the 0Z sounding, showing very steep lapse rate, the very intense heating. We saw how high the potential temperatures were in New Mexico there. In fact, I think we can go to Albuquerque. We can see that incredible lapse rate there, pretty much dry adiabatic, and the very, 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 very dry air. So just off the surface, we've got dew points of about -18 Celsius, and that's going to be about 0 Fahrenheit. Can you get a thunderstorm going up in this stuff? Well, you probably could. And this happens, believe it or not, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, places like that, when they get enough cool air aloft. Even with this huge inverted V setup, they'll get storms. So we've got an LCL up here at about 23,000 feet, but too much convective inhibition. Okay, quick look at dynamics. Okay, current chart looking like this. So we've got the polar front jet running from Oregon to Nebraska, as I mentioned earlier. A few waves moving through the flow. Looks pretty quiet across the Rockies right there. Some of this vorticity here convectively induced, and the weak flow means that that vorticity is not going to be significant. What do we have over the next couple of days? Well, we've got this wave here. This is going to be digging in the northern plains over the weekend. And look at that, heading towards Iowa. So it looks like more rain in the forecast for the western Midwest and maybe the Great Lakes there. Okay, forecast time. Let's head to the high resolution rapid refresh. There's our storm up in Nebraska. Looks fairly good. What's the trend on that going to be overnight? Looks like it's going to push southeast and tap that 850 millibar flow. 30-40 knots coming from the south. That's going to help keep that going. So we're looking at an MCS moving south through the Kansas City area, through northern Missouri. This is going to be around midnight. moving into St. Louis around 5 a.m. and down through Springfield around then. And looks very outflowish. So I'm not going to expect too much severe weather with that. And it's pretty much gone there at about 9 or 10 in the morning. But remember the outflow boundaries. Got to go back. Look at that MCS. See that tail end right there? That's outflow boundaries. You need to keep an eye on that. So we're going to be looking at something like that up and down from the Ozarks up to eastern Kansas, central Nebraska. And that could be a focus for convection tomorrow, depending on what kind of pattern we have. So keep that in mind. 850 millibar flow. This is the NAM. This is showing the moisture depth. This is a chart that I really like. It's very rare, hard to find. Most of what you find on the upper level charts is relative humidity. And for convective forecasting, I don't like that at all. I like dew point or mixing ratio. And I think UCAR has mixing ratio charts. Let me see if I can find that for you. We'll go to UCAR weather. See what comes up for UCAR. UCAR to depth. UCAR wiki. UCAR jobs. Yeah, a job at UCAR. That would be pretty cool. Okay, UCAR weather. Their upper air, actually I think their models had a little bit of this upper level moisture. Yeah, you see this here? 925, 850 mixing ratio. And this was actually me that got this added about 15 years ago. I forgot who the webmaster was, but I talked to him about this moisture depth issue, and I was able to persuade him to add this. So you can use this. So let's take a look at the rapid refresh. We'll look at the 925 mixing ratio. So this gives you a little extra moisture information. Let's see where we at here. Yeah, there it is. 850 mixing ratio, that's 500 millibars, and basically 10 corresponds to about 50 degree dew points. So fairly good moisture through the, let's see, when is this for? Let's see, what are we looking at here? Okay, so this is a 9-hour forecast from 0Z. This is going to be valid at about 4 in the morning, and you can see very good moisture depth at 5,000 feet all the way from Oklahoma up to eastern Kansas and up to Des Moines. So that's a moisture axis you're going to want to be aware of if you're tracking that MCS. A little bit of a moisture axis in southeastern Missouri too. So this kind of fills things in with data that we don't get with the radiosondes. And the models have a way of kind of integrating all the data backwards and forwards through time and filling in the gaps, and they do a really great job. So I think this is actually very valuable for the forecast. And 925 millibars, this is 2,500 feet, and you can see very extensive moisture throughout the Great Plains, and then we hit the ground out in the high plains there. 925 intersects the ground through that area. And no clearly defined moisture axis through there. And you can also kind of use this to find the dry line, the dry line aloft at 2,500 feet and 5,000 feet as you get heating. Let me do that real quick. We'll look at a chart for max heating. I guess we're going to have to switch to the NAM. 18 hours. 0Z. Okay, yeah, this is good. Okay, so this is a forecast for 18Z. This is tomorrow. Okay, lost my map there. There we go. So we're looking at the NAM here. 850 mixing ratio. That's going to be up at 5,000 feet. This is the time of peak heating. 18Z, 1 p.m. This is when you're trying to identify your chase target. And you can see the edge of the dry line right here. You keep that on the moist side. And it's very unlikely you're going to get deep convection west of that line right there. So roughly you're looking from Omaha to Kansas City, down to about Shew-t, down to eastern Oklahoma, and then down to about Dallas. And then 925, moisture depth a little bit better there, but we know for sure that in this area right here, right there, that moisture depth is going to be pretty shallow. So that's going to factor into your forecast right there. Okay, so a lot of very good information we have for tomorrow when we're looking at the forecast. So I think we're ready to run things forward. There's our GFS. And let's look at things for tomorrow afternoon at 18Z. So I'm sure we're going to have some chasers out there looking for opportunities. You know, it's the weekend, Saturday. Okay, looks like we got some sort of boundary from Minnesota all the way down to St. Joseph and down to the Dodge City area like that. So this is a boundary that's being pushed southeastward by this very dense air from Alberta, Saskatchewan. Maybe being reinforced a bit by convection. And we do have the dry line. So we stay on the moist side of that line. So this keeps us pretty close to the 70s. I mean, we do have 60s west of the line, but 60s, that's going to be a little bit iffy for very strong, severe weather. Sometimes you may chase westward. You may get a little bit of redevelopment out there, especially when you have the flow returning out from the east. Out in that area, you can get storms popping up there. But generally, you're going to stay kind of close to the eastern boundaries right there. And so that's going to run from about Wichita down through Enid, down through Wichita Falls, and down to the Texas Hill Country. And the moisture axis, very easy to see. That's pretty much up I-35 up to Kansas City and then up to Des Moines. Doesn't really intersect the cold front coming in from the northeast. Okay, and the fact that it doesn't intersect that boundary coming from the northeast, that tells me that the cyclogenesis out to the west is maybe a little bit limited. Maybe we're lacking a bit of upper air support. Let me go back to that dynamics page and see what that shows. Okay, so here's the dynamics page. Run that forward. 15Z, this is when chasers are starting to get to the area. 18Z, they're grabbing lunch, wanting to see what's happening. And what we're seeing here, we know that the front is roughly like this. Did I get that right? Let me. Sorry, guys. I want to make sure I get this done properly. Okay, so cold front. See, this is why I say you want to recite the cities as you go. Okay, so southeastern Minnesota, down through Des Moines, down through St. Joseph. That's what I was thinking of. St. Joseph, down to, I guess, Tribune. Actually, even a little further south, maybe towards Pratt. And maybe Lamar, something like that. So that's the cold front. And then dry line. Looks like around Newton, down to Enid, and maybe to about Wichita Falls. Okay, let's try this one more time. Look at the dynamics. So I don't know if you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to see what kind of dynamics are coming and how they're related to the surface patterns. Okay, so this is the chart at 18Z. Surface boundaries from southeastern Minnesota through Des Moines to St. Joseph, and then down like that. Then we had a triple point right around Newton, down through Enid, through Wichita Falls. Okay, so that's the surface pattern. So you can kind of see here the problem for tomorrow. The dynamics are too far north. Polar front jet running through Wyoming and Nebraska. And we can see that upstream there's not much in the way of upper level lift. We don't see any troughs approaching our area. In fact, we've had this ridging working on the area for a while. So we've got the moisture axis going north and just veering and not really intersecting the boundaries. So there are some negatives for tomorrow. So where would you chase? I don't know. You could probably head up north, get away from the cap, the surefire storms. Those are going to be up in northern Missouri, up through the Quad Cities, up to southeastern Minnesota. So that's one possible play area right there. The other is you hope on some surprise upper level lift coming from upstream. Maybe things pull together towards sunset at the last minute, and that would be near the triple point. I'm trying to see what colors I have here. Sorry here, I'm trying to... Nope, it's not a color. Okay, I'm just hitting random keys. Okay, let's put that back. So the other area we're looking at around the Newton area. So this is where we would hope for maybe a little bit of last-minute salvation. Bit of northwesterly flow in that area. And then the other areas along the dry line. And this time of year, if we have sufficient heating, that could certainly go up. But you can see that the upper-level winds are a bit on the weak side. So you will get storms, but severe weather is questionable. Okay, so that's kind of how we put a target together for tomorrow, and thanks to the benefit of Pivotal Weather's forecast skew-ts, we can kind of get an idea of what the air mass is like ahead of this line. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so there's our cold front. Here's our dry line for tomorrow. Let's try a sounding out in southeastern Kansas. Why did that move? Okay, southeast Kansas, sounding. So 18Z, you're probably at Carl's Jr., maybe getting an Allsups. I don't know if Allsups is up there in Kansas, but yeah, you're looking at a little bit of capping up there at 850 to 700 millibars. So that's going to be a problem there. And you really need that upper level lift to overcome that. What do we need to overcome that cap? Well, let's see. We do have the moisture in place. We've got a decent 70 millibars of moisture. You can still get storms out of that. I'm going to go with this for a lifted mixing ratio. Come down and get our convective temperature. We're looking at a convective temperature of about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So we would need somewhat of a miracle to get storms going there in Kansas. Foiled by the cap. Let's try a little bit further south. Let's try Oklahoma. Maybe we'll get away from the cap a little bit. Yeah, Oklahoma also showing a cap. Convective temperatures on the order of about 101. I don't know. All you need is a little bit of upper level lift to kind of work on that boundary and work on the upper level conditions, and you might be able to erode that cap a little bit. And we'll go further down the boundary into Dallas. Dallas also showing some capping and certainly some moisture there. And you can kind of see the weakness of the moisture, 850 millibar conditions, a little bit on the dry side. So if we try to get a thunderstorm out of this, we're going to need temperatures of about 106 degrees. Is 106 in the forecast for Dallas? Well, it seems like a lot of the time it is, but not tomorrow. But we would get quite a bit of cape out of that if things did get going. So cap, kind of a big problem. And let's go up north a little bit further up towards, let's see, maybe Iowa. We'll go up north of the Quad Cities. I mean, certainly we should get away from the cap up in that area. Yeah, look at that. Lack of a cap. So storms should go up pretty early there. We do have conditionally unstable lapse rates. Looks like we would squeak out maybe 500 to 1,000 cape. And let's try going in between. Maybe to northern Missouri. Okay, this is not looking too bad. Very good moisture. Cap is an issue. Well, we do have to get up to about 100. But we're a little bit closer to the upper level dynamics. We could see something out of that. Let's go to southern Iowa. And now we are lacking the cap there. So there are probably going to be some viable targets in Iowa there. And of course the boundary, that if the cap is weak enough, and if you have a good strong boundary, like maybe what's being left by that MCS in this area, maybe that drifts northward tomorrow, that could be a focus for storms there. So I'm kind of looking at this area for tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on things for that region. Let me take a look at SPC. I haven't looked at any of their forecasts for tomorrow. We'll take a look at their day 2. Convective outlook, day 2. And looks like we are pretty much in agreement. So they're looking for southern Iowa, northern Missouri, and the further west you go, the more you get into the cap. But that boundary, you're going to want to keep an eye on that. And I think somebody is going to get some pretty good footage tomorrow from somewhere in this area. There are ingredients in place for severe convection. We just don't have it pinned down, and that's not going to be apparent probably till tomorrow. Let me take a look at the chat here. Let's see what's going on here. I don't know if you want to see me on the webcam, but there we go. See if I can get the mic out of the way. Taking a look at the chat. We've got a lot of discussion in here. And I'm trying to read everything. Let's see. Lloyd Ricardo says, restarted, sounded good. You sounded distorted for a bit, but we're fine now. I'm going to do some offline tests tonight and try to play around with things. And I wonder if it's coming from the webcam. Let's see, testing 1, 2. Yeah, see, desktop microphone. I don't know if, yeah, that's probably feeding into the mixer here. Coming in on this channel. You see how complicated this stuff is, and I'm kind of a little bit stupid when it comes to this, and I'm gradually figuring it out. Let me cut this. You guys tell me if you notice a change here when I disable this. Okay, that's gone. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Mary had a little lamb. Her fleece was white as snow. 1, 2, 3. ABC. How does that sound? Okay. That may have gotten rid of that there. I think that was back feeding into the audio there. Okay. Carl Berghoff, appreciating Tim's hand-drawn analysis. And tomorrow's Saturday, and I think what we're going to do, if I'm feeling good, and hang on a second, and if I've had some sleep and get some rest, we will do some more of those hand analyses. Let me see if I can find an example. Check here. Yeah, like this would be an example. Let me see if I can show that to you there. I don't know if that's going to focus or not, but this is the kind of analysis work that I do. Sometimes I put an overhead cam on the looking up over the board where you can see it coming together. And this was another previous chase day. You can kind of see that coming together. Notice the radar. I think the radar data is very important, and I also use satellite data. And there's one right there. So anyway, those are examples of hand-drawn analyses. And what I may do is I may make that a special feature for the Patreon donors. So you're going to get an email if I decide to do that, and you're going to be informed that there's a private link, and there's going to be a link there. So that'll be something special that you'll get for your support of the channel, which I greatly appreciate. So we're going to plan on that for tomorrow, as long as I don't oversleep. I'm on a very, very, very late schedule, so I'll try to back that up, though, with severe weather coming in. Okay, so we've looked at the forecast for tomorrow, and we've got a pretty good idea what's going to be going on, and we're kind of in agreement with SPC. So you see here, I'm not really forecasting for your area. That's not the point of this webcast. What we're talking about is how to forecast weather in general, and showing you techniques that you can apply to your area. So I'm kind of like passing on knowledge rather than passing on a forecast to you. That's not really the point of this webcast. Okay, Sunday, 0Z. Okay, this is going to be Saturday towards evening. Triple point from about, around Newton. north of Medicine Lodge, down through Altus and down to Eastland County. I don't know if anybody's ever chased on I-20 or, yeah, Eastland County, Ranger Hill. When I used to chase with Gene Roden, we used to head out there sometimes, and there was a hill that kind of overlooked to the east. And a very neat spot there. That's kind of where you go up onto the higher terrain around Abilene. Okay, moving ahead to Sunday. Let's see what Sunday's forecast is. I'm going to stop at 18Z. So this is when everybody is at Subway or taking a break, stopping at Allsup's, trying to find a chase destination. And the dry line is going to run from about Graham to just west of Fort Worth to about maybe around Canyon Lake, where Ancient Astronaut is, and down through the San Antonio area. So something like that right there. So things shifting down to Texas here for Sunday. What about the moisture? Well, there's some moisture feed coming north, up from Houston up to Dallas. I don't know how deep it is, but yeah, it's definitely there. And there is some moisture coming down the backside of the front. So it looks like maybe a little bit of upslope activity from Vernon to about maybe Snyder, Jayton, along the Cap Rock there. Maybe some potential there. Yeah, it looks like we got a little bit of an intersection there with the boundary there. So maybe that's probably the best chance for storms right around Dallas, Lake Texoma, up in that area, I would think. Do we have upper air support for Sunday? Well, first let me draw this out. Let me. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put the cities in my head as I go, so I can transpose that when I go to other charts. That's a technique there that you want to use. So we go from about Cairo, Illinois, Fort Smith, Wichita Falls, Midland for our cold front, and then south from Graham through Ancient Astronaut's Place down to Brownsville. Okay, so there we go. So let's look at the upper air support. I think we got northwesterly flow coming in, so hang on, let me get this all fixed here. All right, Sunday, 18Z. This is the picture. So Cairo, Illinois to Fort Smith to, what was it, Wichita Falls. I think I lost the last couple cities, but there was also Graham for the dry line down to Ancient Astronaut's Place down to Brownsville. Do we have upper air support? Yeah, it looks like we got maybe a little bit. Looks like maybe a couple of short waves. This is a little bit different, so maybe we might have a little bit of upper air support. This would mean maybe a bit of cyclogenesis in the Vernon, Wichita Falls area, if that moves far south enough. You might want to look at some of the other models like the RDPS and some of the other, like the NISSL. I'm trying to remember the. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank here, but there's a bunch of other models you can check that, and of course the rapid refresh. And sometimes the high resolution rapid refresh will come into range. That'll probably happen tonight, and it did a very good job with the forecast yesterday, as we saw. Okay, so a tiny bit of upper air support, but the bulk of it is going to be going west. So do we have the moisture for severe weather out there on Sunday? Let's take a look. Let me get that back to midday. Sunday midday. Okay, we were focusing on Texas here. But yeah, it looks like we got a little bit of moisture ahead of the front. But you can see that the 850 millibar flow is kind of parallel to the boundary right there. So what that's going to mean, upper air vector is probably going to be running something like that. The low-level jet vectors like that, so your core feeding vectors are going to bring that sort of to the south, so we're going to have cells probably gradually south, moving south on these. And depending on if the low-level jet and the upper-level flow, if they get like more synchronized, that could actually give us a training situation where storms are kind of back building, and that would result in some flash floods out in this area. On the other hand, the cold pool, that's probably rapidly expanding eastward, so that would be something that would keep storms going. Okay, head to Monday. 9:24. We got 22 people on. I appreciate your patience there. I'll try to wrap things up here shortly. I guess you all got things to do here. Look at that. We've got a tropical system coming up from the Gulf. GFS had been bringing something up into this part of Mexico earlier, the past few runs, and before that it was bringing something up north, but it looks like it's flip-flopped, and now we're back to something in the eastern Gulf right there. So I'm sure Ryan will update us on what may be happening with this. The main effect that this is going to have is that's going to cut off the moisture for Texas. You can already see offshore flow here in Louisiana and Mississippi. And then we do have the old boundary moving south through Texas, becoming quasi-stationary. Probably some residual moisture along that and some possibility for rain, depending on how much capping there is and the usual. Okay, for the webcast on Tuesday, that system, whatever it is, moving up into western Florida. And you'll notice, take a look at this. See the closed contour right here? You would probably be thinking the center of the storm is right there. But look at that wind vector. There's a wind vector coming out of the north. So you're going to want to adjust that a little bit and put the center right there. You have to use all of the data as you put your forecast together. So that's the center. Looks like it's bringing it just east of Panama City, I think. Maybe a little west of Apalachicola. I'm not too familiar with. Obviously, I don't speak those names too much, but that's as close as I can get. So probably landfall, Alabama, Georgia coming inland, and that's going to bring a ton of moisture inland. It's hard to overemphasize how prolific these are at bringing tropical moisture inland, even if they're coming from the Pacific and going overland. So if that does work its way inland, I would expect some very heavy rains associated with that. Cyclogenesis getting reestablished in Colorado here for Tuesday. Dry lines sort of coming together. Very weak moisture, mostly 60s dew points, but probably enough for some chasing in western Kansas on that day. For Wednesday, new cold front blasting southeastward right there. There's that high pressure driving it south. Looks like moisture onshore in Texas finally once again, and maybe a little bit of evapotranspiration in Iowa and Kansas. It looks like a little bit of collision with the front right in this area, so maybe Iowa and Nebraska looking for thunderstorms on that day. And we do got a bit of a dry line extending south from that boundary, kind of like that right there. So that could be a possibility, triple point there. Also maybe a little bit of upslope in far northeastern Colorado. And here's that system coming on shore near Panama Beach. Skip ahead to Thursday. What happened to that front? Looks like it went kind of quasi-stationary here. I see maybe a warm front through here. Looks like some very good cyclogenesis there in southwestern Kansas. Kind of a weakly defined dry line through the I-35 area. System coming inland into Georgia. So probably kind of rainy then. For Friday, continued cyclogenesis there in Texas. Strong flow coming up from the south, dry line just to the west of there, and looks like a boundary from about Quincy, Illinois, across Kansas City to Denver. So looking for probably good chances of thunderstorms there, northern Kansas, southern Nebraska. And I think we've kind of lost that tropical system. Maybe here in northern Alabama. Okay, so we're just kind of splitting hairs here because we're getting out to 192 hours, but just wrapping this up. Another big front coming south for the weekend. Moisture heading northward, so precipitation chances all the way up and down that boundary. Monday afternoon looks like quasi-stationary boundary through Texas. Moisture mostly in eastern Texas, some upslope in the West Texas area. 27th going to the 28th and the 29th. Cyclogenesis on the plains, moisture coming northward, probably just MCSs and boundary interactions up in the central and northern plains. And then for July 2nd, starting to get towards that July 4th weekend. Looks pretty active there for the northern plains. Looks like maybe some sort of warm front moving northward right there. And probably another tropical system there in Alabama. Okay, one thing I wanted to check here is the precipitable water associated with that tropical system and see how wet that thing is. So we'll load this up here, and let me take a quick look at the chat. And sorry, I just cannot read all of these. Oh yeah, time-lapse videos. I wanted to show you. Yeah, Carl Berghoff had some time-lapse video. Let me show that. And there we go. So hopefully that's coming through the stream okay. For some reason I can't get that to replay there. Yeah, there we go. There's another look at that time lapse. And also I got a contribution there from Ryan Toomeys, one of the victims of the flooding. I think he said it was a water moccasin right there. And my dad grew up in New Orleans back in the 60s. They had some hurricanes through there, and him and his friends used to go around and collect water moccasins, and I guess maybe they probably killed them, or I don't know what they did with them, but that's just what they did in the 60s. There would be snakes all over the place after the hurricanes there. So looks like this guy here just drying off on that ledge there, having a good time. Okay, elsewhere in the chat, Ronald Martinez talking about the killer heat in the west. I'm not being funny, this is serious. Carl's looking forward to getting the Go 16 when it goes east, and hoping McItis gets the data. And yeah, I'm hoping they get that data too. We really need that. I don't know why they're not putting the data on McItis. Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. Yeah, I appreciate that. Incredible lightning barrage in South Florida. Going to be a hot summer in the southwest Arizona. Yeah, CPC looking for above average temperatures this summer. But Texas, they've got above average precipitation for this summer. So good news for our state here, at least. Couple people leaving because they're out of time. 123 degrees in Death Valley from Ron Chalfant. NHC update: Gulf of Mexico has a 60% chance of development off the Yucatan. Let me see if I can bring that up. Yeah, there we go. There's the SPC graphic right there. So the Gulf of Mexico starting to get active, 60% chance of cyclone formation in 5 days. That's probably what the GFS was picking up on for this area here. And then we've got this other system in the deep tropics. And I keep remembering an old hurricane a long time ago, like back in the late 80s maybe, that went way south and like made landfall in Venezuela or Trinidad. That might have been Ivan, I think, maybe, was it? I think Ivan was the one that took that track. I don't know, I'm sure somebody here knows which one that was. Depression should be announced by late Saturday. Carl Berghoff reporting pleasant 70 degrees in northern Wisconsin, 57 dew point. We're down to 81 here, so a little bit warmer. Carl says, has anyone attended the EAA Air Venture in Oshkosh? I've actually thought about going up there, but, that's kind of an expensive trip, and I don't own an airplane, so I guess it would be kind of fun to look around, but one of these days I would like to make it up there. Uh, 2000 Cape. Who is reporting 2000 Cape? Yeah, in Indiana for Saturday. Severe weather predicted from Sue M there. Saturday into Sunday, looking for severe weather there. Eddie W. says tomorrow looks more and more like a wind event in eastern Iowa. Eddie says, see how heating maybe some good boundaries for early on before they become MCS. Yeah, definitely look at those boundaries, and I'll show you one good site that you should definitely check out. Very useful for pre-initiation time. Let me bring this up, and that is College of DuPage. So let me bring that, College of DuPage weather. So when you go to their website, you go to Weather Analysis Tools, go to Satellite and Radar. And if you're watching kind of a broad area, you can do the 1 kilometer. Sometimes I use that. And maybe I'll sometimes use visible. You can also use radar, but sometimes I use GR level 2 to handle that. So let's look at the Scottsbluff area, and we'll kind of do a test right there. And you can see, let me shrink this here. They've got this little interface down at the bottom, and they have a slider there for the data, for the satellite data. See right here? You just take your cursor and move on the slider, and you can go back and forth. That's very handy, so you see it right there. I don't know if cursor keys work. I guess they don't. That would be kind of nice. But they also have a couple of other fields, and I guess this is from the rapid refresh model. They've got convective inhibition. They've got CAPE, theta E, streamlines. The only downside is I don't know where this data comes from, and I think it's vital to know where these are coming from. These could be generated from METAR and synoptic data, or they could be generated from the rapid refresh, and I think it may be the latter there. Wind vectors and theta, but theta E is really what's critical for thunderstorm formation. You're going to be looking for theta E ridges and that kind of thing. County borders, lots of good stuff, so yeah, definitely check them out. That's a very useful tool. All right, let's see here. Going through the rest of the chat. Never a waste of time when learning from a great educator on all these topics. Appreciate that, Ryan. I never seem to quote barometric pressure. Is that because it's not useful on its own, or maybe indicated as well by other readings? To me, barometric pressure, that's kind of, I don't really look at absolute values. I look at gradients. So let me bring up sea level pressure here. I mean, I certainly sometimes use that, especially altimeter settings, because when you're looking at analysis data, see here's our altimeter settings, and in the mountains it does tend to be very disrupted, and that's because of the terrain there. But once you get out into the plains, yeah, pressure can definitely be pretty useful, and especially pressure falls. And I'm talking about 1 hour pressure falls, and that's very, very difficult to get off the internet. But if you can track those, that can actually help you track upper level waves, because that has a response at the surface. So if you're looking back beyond the dry line and you're looking for 1 hour pressure falls and you see kind of a trend moving toward your target, that would indicate the cap is probably being removed in this area. So that would be one thing you would watch right there. And of course you can kind of use the pressure to kind of find the fronts kind of as a cheat. But using pressure is secondary to using temperature, density, and moisture. The fronts should fall in the troughs, but you've got to go by that temperature and moisture. Well, not much data there in Mexico, and you can see we kind of get a corrupt artifact here on the analysis thing. And that's why in digital atmosphere I have different analysis schemes here. There's weighted, Barnes, and Cressman, and a lot of these schemes, what they do is they do a very, very broad, very smooth field. Starts with that. And then it analyzes a little bit more finer. And then it weights the field based on that. Then it looks at a finer view, like what you're seeing here. And then it weights the field based on that. So it kind of builds a little bit better picture. The problem is it does take some time to compose, and maybe I can just do that real quick while we're waiting. I'm going to put up the Cressman analysis. It's one of the more complicated analysis schemes. So we'll do the plots. And then we'll do the altimeter setting once again. So we're running the Crustman algorithm. And I need to work on this program tonight. I've been gradually getting some work done. I want to get a 2017 release of this software done. So that plot is running right there. Yeah, this is the... Yeah, this reminds me yesterday. I was trying to show you the compiler where I put all this stuff together, but it doesn't seem to want to interact very well with the other tools I'm running. So anyway, we'll go back to the chart here. And yeah, look at this. You see a little bit more of a smooth field, a little bit more representative. So it's using the large-scale synoptic data and the mesoscale data as well. So you can see it gives you a better plot there. And sometimes you have to play around with the smoothing to really get the troughing showing up. That kind of thing right there. Okay, steering currents in the Gulf, according to Ryan, kind of murky at this point. The GFS European models, still spaghetti pattern across the spectrum. Maybe we can take a look at that too. Let me go to one of the sites that I often visit. Tropical model site. This is tropicalatlantic.com/models. First you have to have a storm, and all this stuff here is for this Atlantic storm right there. So we skip down. I don't think we have a track for that one in Mexico, so I think we're kind of stuck with the ECMWF and the Canadian model for that. But if you want to know where this one is going, yeah, we can go ahead and load that up. View models in Google Earth. Let's see what it's doing with that storm out in the southern North Pacific. And this will give you all the model plots on where that storm is likely to be heading. So there you go right there. So currently north of Brazil. And I think if you hover on this, you can figure out what model it's coming from. Or click on that. So there's the CEM2. That might be the Canadian model. CMC2, and then this other model here, AP10, don't know what that is. There's some charts on the internet that'll tell you what each of these is. These are ensembles here. But anyway, the general pattern, bringing it just north of the coast of Brazil, a couple of models bringing landfall. The rest of them bringing the storm across Trinidad into the Caribbean. And you guys know what that means. If we have a Cat 2 or Cat 3 storm in this area, we're going to be looking for maybe something heading our way later on. So we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, let's see here. Tim has several books that are worth reading. Yeah, and if you don't want to send a Patreon donation, definitely I would appreciate ordering the books. That's going to be at weathergraphics.com. So my books are down here, and I would definitely appreciate any orders for those books. And if you want to get an autograph, you email me before you order, or at the same time as you order, and I'll try to autograph the book as it goes out, and get that taken care of for you. I normally don't do that for orders, but you viewers, I will take care of that for you. Just let me know. Any thought of adding CUDA, support for acceleration? I'm not sure what that refers to digital atmosphere. Ron has digital atmosphere, but hasn't mastered that yet. I'm actually working on a manual. Sorry, I know we're kind of dragging on here. I'll just show you one more thing here. This is for the digital atmosphere fans. I'm going to have to bring an InDesign here. This is where I do most of my book writing work. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of the digital atmosphere manual that is under development. So let me bring that up here. Because I figure a program like this needs good documentation, and this is the model. This is the manual coming together here. Let's see let's see here. Digital Atmosphere User Manual, April 2017. A little bit late, but there it is, coming together gradually. So I'm kind of putting this together as I do the programming, and you can really see the kind of charts you can construct. Like out here, this is out here for Europe. So a lot of stuff you can put together there for digital atmosphere. So you can also download that and give it a try, and that'll run for about 60 days, and then you can think about registering then. And you will also be able to upgrade for free too, so there's that too. Okay, so enough shilling of my products. I think that's pretty much it for tonight. Looking for more MCSs and a little bit of storm action, and if we do a special weathercast tomorrow, I will send an email to your Patreon sign up email addresses, and I will give you the link for that private live stream where we'll cover that situation, and that's only going to be if there's a slight or moderate risk. So we'll see how that pans out for tomorrow. Okay, I think that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you watching, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. I think this is the longest webcast we've ever done. 1 hour 50 minutes. 1 hour 48 minutes. Okay. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate your support. We will see you tomorrow. Okay, guys, I figured out the problem. What? Sorry about that. The reason you didn't hear any microphone music, any of that stuff, let me show you here. Let's see weather charts. Yeah, I've got this mixer here. When I went to switch off, I accidentally hit the solo button, and when you hit solo, it only has what's in the microphone, nothing else, no music or anything like that. So you heard me, but no music. So I don't know. Let's do one more fade out, and we'll make this official. And let's see here. Yeah, okay. From the start, take it easy. Hope you guys have a good evening. And thanks for watching. And consider the Patreon donations. And we will see you tomorrow.